Hello, everybody. Hello. Chongo, what the hell? Thank you for the 67 bits. Every time when I'm gone, I come back to some bits. It's crazy. What the hell, guys? How are you all doing, though? I also just grabbed to make some food. Thank you for the net for another 100. God damn it. What the hell? I just made a little bit of food that I'm gonna be munching on before we start with the book. And then we're gonna probably keep it a bit shorter today. We'll see. I'm gonna use Switch I bought. Ooh, let's go. I haven't used mine in so long. When did Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak come out? When did that come out on the Switch? I'd be like 3 years ago, I think. God damn. Yeah, I played that with a couple of friends for a few months when that came out, and we beat all of it, like most of it and all, and then I kind of just never touched my Switch after. But I still have it. Almost 4 years. Jesus. Yeah, so I probably haven't touched it in like 3 years. God damn. But yeah, we're gonna do the book, 2-3 chapters as usual. And then the new Imaginarium Theater in Genshin has been out now as well for 3 days. I still have to do that, so we might do that. I'm gonna play Pokemon ZA and Tomodachi Life. Hell yeah. I mean, I would get if I had the money, I would probably get a Switch 2 at some point as well, but then again, I barely play my Switch 1 already, so who knows? Who knows? I'm not sure yet if I'm gonna be streaming NTE at any point. It's a fun game, but I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, we'll be doing some Genshin afterwards, I think, a little bit. Imaginarium Theater clear. I mean, I thought technically I also have to do the event in Genshin, but we might do that at a later point. So it's just gonna be Imaginarium Theater and a bit of chill. And then, well, whenever you guys are ready, Chango and the others, we'll do this stuff afterwards. So Lily, did you just wake up? after your crazy long stream? How are you doing, Lily? I hope you're doing well. I'm just munching on something right now, so I'm still not with my camera and all, but I'm here. I hope you had some nice rest after that stream. What the fuck? Okay. All right. This is wild. All right. There we go. Oh, no. I closed the music. I am so stupid. No. What was that noise? Hi guys. Still not done eating though, but how you doing? I accidentally closed my music. Come on.
Don't doom scroll, masturbate, drink, and
What the? I forgot how it makes my head hurt. Oh no. There we go. We back with the music. I can imagine. I haven't had a VR headset on in a while. The last time I did, I was at a friend's place and I played some Beat Saber. I fully quacked this. Damn, Lily. I'm glad you've got some rest though after your crazy stream. Back to your 12 hours. Sorry I couldn't be there for so much because I was so freaking tired after I got home, man. Yo, what's up, Ben? How's it going? I forgot how much parties just drained me for just being there. Like, I wasn't really even socializing a lot or interacting with a lot of people. I was just sitting there for like 7 hours. But Jesus fucking Christ, I was so dead afterwards. I just wanted to go home. I hope you had a lot of fun with your stream though, Lily. I just hope you guys are having a great weekend, because mine was, it was okay, I guess. Yeah, Lily, I wish I could have been there more for the stream. I've been missing a lot of your streams because I go to bed when you start. The drone is coming very soon, followed by oh boy. Well, good luck with that, Lily. Oh yeah, Lily. Did you see when you log into NTE today, you'll have a free 5-star picker in your mail? You can choose another free standard 5-star. I already picked mine. The obvious choice. But God damn it, Lily. Did you actually pick the right one this time? Oh yeah, Ben, actually, I still got the 30 free polls and the free character later. The mail was just delayed on that account. And I picked Fadia from that. And then we just got another 5-star picker today in the mail. And I picked another character that I picked Daffodil, which works super well with Fadia. I also got the featured 5-star Nanalie, that like glasses cat girl. I also got her in like 40 polls. Yeah, my team is probably gonna be Daffodil, Fadia, Danielle for some buffing, and then Adler, probably. It's crazy just like how many systems are in that game as well, though. Like the amount of things you can do in that game is insane. On the space one of the gotcha. It's okay. It's understandable. I don't know. I'm still like, I'm enjoying it right now, but I can also see like it's probably, I don't know how long it'll last. It really depends on what they do in the future. It's fun right now, but we'll have to see. And like, there are just so fucking many systems in play in that game. Like, you can do so many different things. D5 collapse, I give it 3 months. There are just so many different things you can do in that game. It's insane. Warframe of Gotcha. Cause like once you unlock the tycoon thing, yeah, once you unlock the tycoon part, there's so many other systems apart from just like the farming and the quests. You can do like you have your own restaurant you can manage, you have your own house, you have your garage, you can buy your own cars, you can do car races. There's like a Tetris mini game, a delivery mini game. You can be an Uber driver for random NPCs. You can go fishing. You have a bonding system with your characters. There's so much random stuff thrown into that game. It's insane. I'm gonna stick to Genshin. Okay, I don't blame you. There's so many weird systems. Oh, later on as well, like you unlock like a bank heist. You could do like a fucking bank robbery and shit. Like, there's so much. About a DoorDash in there soon, probably. Rapunzel. Ooh, let's go, Lily. Congrats. I mean, oh god, there's also, you know, these like restaurant games where like you get like the customers, they want to order, you have to prepare the order and, you know, give them the food in time before they leave. You can do that too with the restaurant management. You can like open the restaurant and actually do the orders yourself. There's so many random things in that game. I don't even know. The story has been kind of okay so far. I mean, I haven't really continued much because I've been exploring the map more than anything. Like the very first area you're in, like bridge crossings or whatever it's called, I almost have it 100% already. I think I'm missing like 3 of the Oracle Stones and then I'm done. Oh, and some side quests, but I think the side quests are currently locked behind me doing more story. The map is it's a very cool map, that is true. And some of the weekly bosses are very interesting. I fought like a giant whale. I fought like a headless rider. There's like a rhythm game boss kind of thing. God, imagine at some point the game will, I think the game will also have a rhythm game at some point, now that I think about it, because in the tab with the like the your city activities, I think I saw something about like a band thing as well, so there might be a rhythm game kind of thing going on as well at some point. I have no fucking idea. This game has so many features and so many fucking modes. I am so overwhelmed. I am so freaking overwhelmed with this game. I'm checking right now. Give me a second. Enfield at some point. It looks interesting. The base building aspect seems pretty cool, that's for sure. Yeah, I think I know which character Lily will pick from the free picker and NTE though. I think I have a pretty good idea on who she's gonna pick. It's a character on that free gift? No, it's only the 5 stars from the standard. So Bite Song, Sakiri, Fadia, Daffodil, Heather, Jia Yuan, or whatever her name is. Not Nanalie, because Nanalie is a featured limited 5 star. It's like all the ones you can get from the standard poll as well. All the 5 stars you can get from there. I don't think they would give you the featured 5 star that early for free like this. Sadly. I got lucky. I got her in like 40 polls. So now I'm probably gonna save and see which character they're gonna be doing next. Because we also get a free cheese if we level up the whole tycoon stuff. So we'll have to see. I could see Hotori become a playable character soon. She seems very interesting. You know, the owner or like the boss of that of Avon. I want Hotori. She's pretty cool. I like her design. We'll see if she becomes playable soon. Hotori is indeed the next limited. Okay, well. Then, who knows? Maybe I can get Hotori as well then. I already have Nanalie already anyway, so. Might as well go for another one, huh? Well, what did I want to check? Oh yeah, I just wanted to check on the hobbies thing. But yeah, there's a hobby here called Super Sound, which currently is still locked, but I could see that be like a rhythm game kind of thing maybe at some point. So I don't know. And you guys know me and rhythm games. Still the other pick too. Not sure. I've seen that apparently with like Nanalie you can run Heather. You could do like Nanalie, you're the main protagonist, and Heather together or something. No wait, Heather was Lakshana, right? Oh wait, that doesn't really work. I'm not sure. But I've definitely seen. Oh no, wait! I think with the Daffodil and Fadia, you could do Lakshana. You could do Heather as well or something. I don't know. I'm still not too familiar with the whole combat system and how the combinations work and everything. So I'm learning. It's an interesting system. The Edgar Haniel. I could see that, yeah. Well, I grabbed Daffodil and Fadia for free, and I got Sakiri from the standard banner at like 70, so. Let's see. Well, guys, I think 'tis time When Nick is all level, it would be really funny if I accidentally open one out. It would be, but that free 5-star is waiting, Lily. An NTE. I chose Bite Song for free accidentally, got a double header, and then chose GUN for this new. So when I originally started, I made I went through the whole thing. I got the 50 polls. I did the polls, and then I wanted to pick Fadia, but I misclicked and like I was spamming my right on the D-pad, but it didn't take like one of my inputs. And then I accidentally double header, oof. And then I accidentally took header as well instead of Fadia. I got Bite Song in my first 10 poll on that account as well, on like the standard banner. But I deleted that account immediately, started a new one, picked Fadia from there, got Sakiri, and now I picked Daffodil. Rip Bite Song, I guess. I lost my Bite Song, but I don't care. But it's apparently really good compared to having a healer, but not good for early game. I can see that for sure. Like, she's very strong. Like, she does a decent amount of damage, and she just like heals herself really well and mitigates damage for your team. She's an interesting character, that's for sure. She needs to take a lot of damage in return, though. I was watching a video earlier, and this person, like, just on like some character stuff, and this person called Bite Song Bike Hang. I was like, huh? Like, huh? But it's also funny to just like immediately recognize certain voice actors again in the game, because like, I mean, Bite Song is Griffin Burns, he's Tartag. We have Mint and Sakiri both being Brianna Knickerbocker, who's Hu Tao. Fadia is Amberly Connors, who's Farina. So like, I immediately recognized a few of the VAs. To be fair, you don't really hear like Farina out of Fadia, but I looked her up before and I was like, oh, that's Amberly Connors. I'm gonna have Amberly Connors in every gacha I play, because I want to get Nihilux in Honkai as well, and she's also voiced by Amberly Connors. I saw Alejandro Saab yesterday. Wait, where? He voices one of the... Nah, he's... Of course he's in the game somewhere. He's not a playable yet, but that's also just a matter of time. Considering, you know, there was... Jermaine, if you've done... I don't think I've done that yet. Or is he a random NPC? I mean, he could still become a playable. Who knows? Poor Skia. I mean, Skia, he's who was he? He's Albert from Honkai, his VA, I think. Bill Butts. Main girl's Makima. She's also Eula in Genshin. It's Suzy Young. Yeah, the female main character is Eula in Genshin. And then the that like girl with the jellyfish, Aurelia, I think that's Kira Buckland, which is Cookie in Genshin. or also 2B in Nier Automata, or Jolene in JoJo Part 6. Them in the funniest way. Oh yeah, I've seen some of their dynamic in one of the side quests I've done. I've done the only like side quest, like character side quest I've done was Bite Songs, with like the mute kid and with the flowers and stuff. Bite Song is interesting as a character. And I've been hanging out with Fadia, like just with her bond level stuff. I have to do the other quests as well still. I think I have like 4 character side quests still to do. Because I always do all the optional stuff first before I continue with the main stuff. So I think I still have like 3 or 4 more side quests to do, and then I can continue with the main quest. It's been pretty interesting. But yeah. You guys are ready for today's book? We're probably gonna do like 2 to 3 chapters as always. We're at chapter 16. We're like halfway through the book now, guys. Look at that. I could just... I was scared, so I just went and got body. Let's go. And then you see who you get, and then maybe you can grab Heather if you don't get Heather. All right. Well. Oh yeah, Heather as well. Her VA is Beidou in Genshin. It's Allegra Clock. So like, there's so many VAs I recognized immediately again. Or Maki and JJK. Well, guys, let's start with the book. Like I said, we're probably gonna do like 2 chapters. It seems like one of the chapters is pretty long compared to the other ones. So we'll see. Oh, once there was a snapdragon, wondrous and so fine. Aloysia sang to Littlewick, as she had in the greenhouse just days before. Pinch his cheeks to hear him speak. Isn't he divine? Once there was a thistle there, simple and so plain, but strong and tough and protective. Ne'er was a thistle vain. Ordinarily, she would have felt self-conscious about her voice, or the lyrics of the lullaby she'd chosen, or that she'd sung the same song over and over under her breath all the way back to the bathhouse. But tonight, all Aloysia wanted in the world was to soothe her cat dragon, the only way she knew how. Aloysia's eyes fell on the faintly smoking, star-shaped wound where the pea-sized magical bullet from the mercenary's gun had ricocheted off the cavern wall and embedded itself in Littlewick's right hindquarter. It was neater than the ball-bearing shaped pallet had been. It was neater now that the ball-bearing shaped pallet had been removed, and the spell that Lan and Hollis had negotiated from the mercenary in exchange for his freedom was taking effect. But as she watched, it pulsed again, turning from its natural scar pink to that ethereal glowing orange. How could I let this happen to you? Her voice stretched and broke as she stared down at him, on the bed in the bathhouse's tiny bedroom. Don't deserve you. I shouldn't be allowed to have you. A warm tear rolled off the end of her nose and splashed onto Lan's cape beneath him, just as Aloysia's fellow witch stepped through the invisible door, looking uncharacteristically meek, leading Hollis by the hand behind her, and Aloysia twinged at the sight. As soon as they'd crossed the threshold, Lan snatched back her hand and folded it over their other one, Lingui's leash trailing from her wrist. There was a thump and a yowl as Hollis removed the key and the door really solidified. After that, Aloysia could hear the cat dragon pacing anxiously behind it. "We got 2 pounds of stone cap," Lan reported, her head down. "I don't know how much you need it, but that's enough for a small village, so I'd say it's good news for your patient." "We fed Crow a good supper. Boy, that bird can pack it up. And we sent him to the address you gave us with as much of the stone cap as he could carry. Full disclosure, I've kept some with us. It should make a lucrative trading commodity on the rest of our journey." "Our journey?" Aloysia snapped, not even ashamed of her temper. "Haven't you got what you wanted? Your golden wand and your lucrative stone cap? Or isn't that enough treasure for one hustle?" "It wasn't a hustle," said Lan quietly. "Oh, I'm sorry," said Aloysia, simmering with fury. "I'm not au fait with the lingo. Would you prefer con, scam, or grift? Or maybe we should just call it what it was, a betrayal?" Lan, at least, had the good grace to look abashed by this. "I know you think I'm naive and idealistic and I'm overreacting, but where I come from, witches help still means something. And one of the things it means to me is that I help. I do the helping." Aloysia raged. "I don't usually accept help, but you just sort of happen and I'm trying to do something really hard. So just this once, I let someone else do some of the heavy lifting because I don't have time for my pride and because I do basically anything to fix what I did back at home." She bit her lip at the admission, embarrassed, but carried on. "But you've just reminded me why I don't let other people help. Because they don't really care. They're just out for themselves. I don't know why I'm always the only one gullible enough to actually be out for other people." There was a long and uncomfortable pause. "I'm sorry," Lan said at length. "I'm not used to this. It's been just me and Lingui for such a long time. I wasn't in the habit of thinking about other people, especially not other witches. I know you figured this out already, but I don't generally work well with others." Aloysia felt a wave of frustration and jealousy at this. What she wouldn't give to have a choice to work well with others, to do collective magic, to really help. And this witch was squandering it. But as she looked down at what really mattered, Littlewick kicked a leg in his sleep and creased his eyes in pain, and the fight went out of her. "So," she said dully, "a cat dragon is lying here, barely conscious, and you're telling me you just didn't know about it?" "Pathetic, I know," said Lan briskly. "I wish I had a better explanation. But while we've been in some scrapes, me and Lingui always get out of it okay. I didn't consider there might be collateral damage." "Collateral? I don't mean to minimize it, or you guys. I deal with some shady people sometimes, but in a weird way, we need each other." Aloysia raised an eyebrow at this. "I thought you weren't used to others. Get your story straight." "Don't get me wrong. We're not having tea parties, but we don't usually put each other's lives at risk. I know the mercenary said he just wanted both bounties. I think there's something more serious going on there." The mercenary. After what he did, you're still protecting him? It's not a moral choice. This is my work. It's my livelihood. And I know it doesn't seem like it to you, but it helps. A lot more people than me. I'm sorry for what happened. But if I gave all that up, I would hurt way more than just us. So that's it. You do this and you just apologize, and there's no punishment? As she said the word, Aloysia was forcibly reminded of Olmus and felt a wave of shame. Lan sighed. I'm here. I'm offering. I'll do whatever you want to make things square with us. But I'm definitely not going to punish myself for us both. That wouldn't achieve anything. Aloysia stared. Despite everything, after what she had done, Lan's confidence, her pride, was still perfectly intact. In spite of herself, Aloysia felt a flicker of admiration. The woman was bulletproof. If only she could say the same for Littlewick. We're losing time, Aloysia said. Because of you, Littlewick will be convalescing here for at least 2 days. You want to make it up to us? Confirm the nearest place to catch river weavers. It's a type of magical fish. And whenever Littlewick's feeling up to it, whenever, night or day, you and Lingui be ready to fly us there. I'm not there when I ask you. That's your choice. This is for you, not us. We're not relying on you. There was a faint look of surprise on Lan's face. Aloysia wasn't sure whether it was what it looked like, gratitude at being given a second chance, or what Aloysia was forced to suspect against her instinct. Disbelief that it was so easy to fool Aloysia again. And Lan nodded. We'll be there, she said simply. And then she turned, unlocked the door, and manhandled Lingui out into the hallway by the snout that has immediately come in. With some difficulty and locating the lock by feel, Hollis turned the key in the door behind the witch and her cat dragon. You're right to be angry, he said, wearily from the doorway. Thank goodness I have your approval, said Aloysia tersely. That's not what I mean, he said gently. I know my opinion doesn't matter to you. Aloysia's brow furrowed. She was surprised to find she was insulted. I just want you to know, because we mere mortals sometimes like to hear it, that I think you're doing the right thing. Who do you think I am? Was what she just thought, by the way. Did he really think she thought as little of him as he always had of her? She held his gaze, trying to read his studied face, to no avail. All right, she nodded. Thanks. She forced a tight smile. You know she gave him that gold wand for Littlewick's antidote? Hollis added. He moved closer and perched on the end of the mattress, and Aloysia felt her nerves jangle. Have you ever seen a wand that color before? I know I'm not the magic expert here, but I haven't. No, Aloysia admitted. I didn't even know you could make wands out of anything other than Virgulium. You think it was real? Well, I saw her do that glowing rune thing when she took it out from under her hat, he said with a nod. And when he touched it. Wow, she said. A wand like that had to be valuable. It wasn't nothing to Lan. It wasn't nothing to Lan to give it away, but it was probably just another angle. And she put a spell on your hat too, Hollis went on. Aloysia tensed at this. Was he just going to keep trotting out the fences for the girl he liked? Something inanimate, right? That's how wands work? She bristled, playing dumb again. Yes, he said. When it first got over to her, she was twisted round on Lingui's back, wand out, saying the spell over and over again. Spell speak, like what the Yammerphone had played. Saying it? You're sure? That's why I noticed. I've lived with Ivy long enough to know wand work is normally all flicks of the wrist and rat-a-tat-tat. She raised an eyebrow at him. There's a bit more to it than that. You know what I mean. He gave her a conciliatory look. She nearly lost it with the pressure. She thought you were about to get knocked 80 feet to the ground, and I think it was some kind of protective spell. Maybe for balance? Alicia thought about this. Could be, she nodded, and they lapsed into thoughtful silence. Although Lan hadn't only been using her wand, had she? If she'd been using spell speak, who knew what she could have done? Perhaps she had been telling the truth about knowing that, at least. One thing I don't understand, said Hollis. Those grubs were sticky enough to take your weight. And how come Crow could just get one off my belt buckle like it was nothing? This time, Aloysia successfully avoided looking at said belt buckle. I think the sticky stuff is more for travel, she said. Or to try to fasten them to the walls and ceilings to stop them being scraped off in the first place. Or it's some kind of defense mechanism, trying to stick the axolotl together, use it against itself. She thought of the pamphlet from the train and how it had overlooked several salient points, from the grub's poison to their ability to break down metal. The one the grub used on your belt was a digestive fluid. Either that or Crow's been getting tips from that border guard, Hollis put in lightly. He's been sneaking out to train? Aloysia found herself grinning, which was unexpected under the circumstances. Only if there's a tea cake at the end of it, said Hollis, and she was surprised by how well he'd got to know Crow in their short time together. They shared a small smile. That spell on your hat, the spell on the Yammerphone, he said after a moment. Is it just me? Or is she maybe worryingly powerful? A dangerous person to make an enemy out of, said Aloysia thoughtfully. A good person to owe you a favor, countered Hollis. It wasn't worth it, she said, her eyes on Littlewick, her voice a whisper. Her shoulders began to shake, and before she could do anything to stop them, there were tears. Aloysia covered her face with her hands and cried as silently as she could, taking little gulps of air and suppressing the sound into full-body shudders. At some stage, Hollis put a hand on her shoulder, and she twisted into him, grabbing his waistcoat with her nails and pressing her face into his chest until she had soaked his shirt clean through. When she was too exhausted and her eyes stung too much and her head and her body were too heavy to stay upright, he laid her down on the pillow. When he tried to take his arm out from under her and shuffle away, she reached wordlessly around behind her and pulled his other arm over hers. Three days later, Aloysia woke to Littlewick playing a pouncing game with her torn apron string. There had been a skittering sound, and when she opened her eyes, it was to see that he was upright on his back legs at front of the bed, waving a clawed paw at the apron, as if rehearsing his angle of attack. before diving into it and rolling around on his fluffy winged back with a string in his mouth. Aloysia gave a little cry of joy and relief and swept him up into her arms. Before the three of them were ready to set off on the next leg on their journey, which Lan had left word with Hollis was going to be a small fishing village a few days' flight upriver, Hollis had insisted Aloysia get her golds, and rather her spells worth, and take a soak in the bathhouse's eponymous baths. So she went, feeling awkward and out of her depth and worrying all the time that she'd take her waffle robe off at the wrong point or someone would walk in to see her naked. But as it was, every ofuro around Cedarwood Tub was in its own small square room, and while she couldn't read the writing on the signs, there were helpful diagrams, and she knew enough about the bathhouse's language after 4 days and nights here to realize she had to follow them from top to bottom, right to left. The tub made a sound like someone playing music on the rim of a water glass and began to fill with frothy water that was somehow Aloysia's perfect, just the right side of burning temperature. And that flooded the room with a fragrant fog that smelled of lily of the valley, patchouli, and vanilla. Aloysia pattered back to their room and found Littlewick and Hollis locked out. His arms were overburdened with cotton bags and brown paper and string packages, one of which he handed to her. "I'm in the valley. I guess you are now, Lily." "I guess you are now in the valley. What do you smell like?" "Let me sniff ya." "The man at the laundry said your old hat was unsalvageable," he mumbled as he adjusted her robe self-consciously and slid onto the bed, lifting the lid of the box. "They're very pretty, but poisonous." "I mean, you're very pretty. I don't know about the poisonous part, though. I hope you're not poisonous." "It's highly poisonous." Well, I hope you're not poisonous, because you're also pretty. And I couldn't find another one that would match your green dress, so it's purple with tiny white flowers. Gypsophila, baby's breath. They covered the deep iris purple fabric like the stars coming out. "I didn't think you want black, and the hat's pre-bent," he added over-enthusiastically, rummaging to find the box among the pile and handing it to her with a flourish. "Am I selling it?" "Should have your own stall," she said, as levelly as she could, given she was looking at the prettiest 2 pieces of clothing she'd ever owned. The hat in the matching fabric had an ivory ribbon tied around it that dangled frivolously at the back. "I might have dropped it," he admitted, gritting his teeth apologetically. Maybe more than once." "You didn't have to," she said quietly, as she unfolded the dress. "Oh, I did," he said. "My hands were extremely full." She smiled at him. He swallowed, broke eye contact, and rummaged some more. "And this is for Littlewick." Next movie. "What are you planning, Lily, huh? What's your plan? Tell me all about it." "And this is for Littlewick," he said, producing a complicated mass of black fabric that seemed to be at least 3/4 straps. An octopus costume? She said, and he shook his head and grinned. Then he did some convoluted looping and folding that ended with the thing around his back and shoulders before slipping Littlewick unceremoniously into the pouch that now hung around his front. Seeing her cat dragon drop out of sight, Aloysia gasped, half expecting him to skim right through the fabric and land on the bedroom floor, but she needn't have worried. Seconds later, a snout emerged from the vicinity of Hollis's chest, followed by a flickering tongue, and then the cat dragon's whole head struggled out, flicked its ears, and looked around inquisitively. "See?" Hollis said proudly, and he threw his arms up. "Hands free for all your giant axolotl climbing, wand waving needs." "This is a weird way of telling me you don't want to get left with him again," she said, trying not to give away how touched she was. "A couple of hours, yes, but do you have to try so hard to make it a permanent arrangement?" he said, his tone teasing. "Everyone says he's such a heartbreaker, like it's so charming." Aloysia remembered young Ivy telling her once, but they're not the ones who have to listen to a string of girls sobbing on the doorstep. Aloysia was embarrassed, guilty even to realize she hadn't thought of Ivy in days, that she'd stopped thinking of Hollis in the context of her. "Well, thank you. It's sweet of you to think of him." She gestured at Littlewick. "Sweet," he said, lifting an eyebrow. "That's where you're wrong. I'm actually an extremely bad person. The streets of Cassacombe are littered with the bodies of the old ladies I wrestled to get all of this." She chuckled, and their eyes met. He gave her a genuine smile. "Right, I'd better get dressed," she said briskly, and felt herself flush at having drawn attention to her state of undress. "I should leave." Hollis looked panicked and cast about for his things. "Yes," she said in a thin voice, forcibly reminding herself of Ivy. "You should definitely leave." "Aloysia," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "Yes," she said, her heart pounding. He started, and then finished quickly. "Need you to let me out." Blushing furiously, she hurried over, turned the key, and slipped into the shimmering doorway to hold it open for him. He ducked his head instinctively as he squeezed past her, avoiding her eyes, and the frond of his brown hair brushed against her forehead before he disappeared down the hallway. She could feel it, right up until she pulled down her hat. Lan and Lingui were waiting on the outbound train platform when Aloysia and Hollis arrived. Lan must have had the same thought they'd had. There was a fresh glossiness to her short black hair, and she was wearing a dress and hat that Aloysia hadn't seen before, in a vivid coral pink. "What if she's lying to us again?" Aloysia muttered to Hollis when they saw her. Littlewick peeked out from the pouch on her front, and Aloysia stroked his hard little head for comfort. "Luring us to our deaths? Or setting us up so she can steal the skater's snare the minute we get to Stromoten?" "I thought you said skater's snare wasn't valuable." "It's not. It's common and it's rarely called for, but it is hard to collect. Basically, no one bothers anymore. Maybe she needs it for a spell of her own. Maybe her guardian's sick too." "Well, someone whose guardian is sick? She's pretty free and easy with her magic," Hollis said. Lan was using her wand to make a ball of rainbow-colored wool bob up and down in front of her, in front of her where Lingui could claw it at it playfully. Aloysia watched her through narrowed eyes. It could all be part of the ruse. I mean, even if you don't trust her, she is our fastest way to Stromoten, Hollis reasoned. If that's actually where we need to go, Aloysia muttered darkly. Then she huffed a resigned sigh. All right, she conceded, but stay alert. Will do, he said, his tone amused, and Aloysia knew Hollis was humoring her, but she realized she was still glad to have him on her side. The next few days were uneventful. By day and even into twilight, they flew on Lingui's back, speaking little since they could hardly hear each other over the rushing of the wind. The five of them ate lunches in the air, where Lan would shuffle along to Lingui's head and slip handfuls of various cat dragon jerkies and dried fish into her familiar's mouth. Each night, feeling stiff and cold after trying to maintain the same position on the cat dragon for hours on end, they would dismount Lingui, and with a few strategic waves of her wand, Lan would set up the surprisingly lavish enchanted yurt that she kept in her pack. In the meantime, Aloysia and Hollis, with Littlewick scampering alongside them, would walk down to the nearest village or farmhouse and exchange gold, spells, or yes, stone caps for their evening meal. And each night, while they were out of Lan's earshot, Aloysia would inquire of the person with whom they were negotiating for food where the nearest place to find riverweavers and skaters' snare were. On the fourth night, she stopped asking since the answer was always the same: Stromoten. One morning, when Aloysia was feeling quietly disheartened after testing her bond with Littlewick again, and failing, Lan presented Aloysia with a pair of tights knotted in thick rainbow-colored wool. Aloysia nodded and pulled them on against the cold. The landscape changed as they ascended the mountain. Where once were rocks, lichen, and heather, now came pines, spruces, and alders. The river that had been a thin, glistening line near the foot of the peak widened into a thick silver ribbon. On the day they reached Stromoten, they shared a rare moment of excitement as they saw from above something long and frilled, like a gigantic eel, flashing past strung with pondweed. They gasped and pointed as it crested the sparkling surface, before disappearing again. A short time later, Lan's wand shot out of her pocket, waving and chiming like a set of handbells, and she announced that they had arrived at their destination, a particularly picturesque hamlet clustered along the riverbank. The buildings of Stromoten were wooden and painted in bright block colors, mostly oranges and reds with the occasional yellow, except for the big house on a rocky ridge overlooking the rest, which was white. Most of the buildings were houses. Aloysia didn't see so much as cafe as they wandered down what passed for the main street, but there was a general store, which seemed to be doing service as a post office and a pet shop as well. The winding thoroughfare within was so narrow that Lan had to stay outside with Lingui, leaving Aloysia, Littlewick, and Hollis to inquire about a lunch that didn't come dehydrated and about the nearest bathroom facilities. Aloysia was determined to negotiate as hard as was necessary to get something warm and fresh, in gratitude for the hard-working Lingui. Inside, the store was dark and dusty in a way that put Aloysia in mind of antique shops. There were simply so many things stacked haphazardly around the place that there were few opportunities for natural light to get in, try as it might. The place had a faintly animal smell that Aloysia put down to whatever was making the fitful, ruffling, scuffling, trilling, and grumbling sounds she could hear coming from one side. But by far the loudest noise was a deep, catching, unpredictable snore from near the back of the shop. When they'd picked their way closer, they saw that the sound belonged to an elderly gentleman with an overall thin-skinned, slightly bruised appearance, along with a knitted jumper, a bright yellow raincoat, and wisps of spiny-looking overgrown white hair. He'd fallen asleep at the overflowing front desk where he'd made a pillow of his own thick forearm. The elderly man startled awake and shouted when Hollis had dinged the small brass bell. "What?" He pulled his half-moon glasses up to his nose. "Is there a guest house somewhere around here?" Hollis asked, and Aloysia shot him a confused look. The look he returned said, "What? I don't want another morning of pricking spider legs out of my hair." "Nay, det det icke," said the old man, stiffly and with a huff that smelt faintly of mackerel. He folded his thick sweatered arms. It wasn't a language they recognized, but the tone of the words were enough. "No." Public restroom?" Aloysia ventured. "Nay," the old man grunted, more forcefully this time. Fishing supplies? Hot lunch?" Hollis added, to more of the same. Cat dragon treats?" Aloysia chipped in for the sake of her pride. "Nay." The old man interlaced his thick fingers. "Det icke nö, from Sonne Somdek." He continued with a meaningful look at Aloysia's hat, and then at Littlewik. It made her wrap her arms around him protectively. "Ta med deg de fragile idene dine og forsvinn." He flapped his hands at them both, a universal sign for "go away," and then his head jerked up at a crash from the doorway. And that's where chapter 16 ends. Oh, we have to speak fucking like Norwegian or Swedish now? We have to speak Scandinavian? So we went from Japanese to French to now going to a Scandinavian language. When are we going to speak German? Can we just go speak German? But it's still I really like this book. It's a really fun book to read. I'll take a little sip. And let's continue on with chapter 17. This first crash was followed by several smaller ones and an unfamiliar woman's voice, with an accent that told them this wasn't her first or possibly even second language. "Jag är okay." They found her standing ankle deep in boxes and packets, leaning her back against the unit, piled with animal cages, trying to single-handedly support a bookcase that was slowly winning the fight, coming down in front of her like an enormous, inexorable hot cover. Both Hollis and Aloysia jumped in and helped her to right the bookcase, toppling a few thick tomes to the floor in the process. Behind him, the old man was making noises of dismay. "Tusen tack," the non-magical woman said, with bright gratitude. And she gave them an enthusiastic, breathless smile. She was younger than them both, with brown skin, long black hair tied up in a messy, beribboned topknot, and eyes the vivid green of forest leaves. She was dressed from head to toe in green, too, from her grassy, long-sleeved thermals to her sage galoshes and olive dungarees. Tak, she said again when Hollis handed her a handkerchief, looking at her wonderingly. Froda? She asked, cheerful as ever as she pointed a finger and moved it in a zigzag over her face. Hollis pointed out the thin red line above her left eyebrow, which she dabbed at, before checking the handkerchief, blinking slowly, swaying and falling over backwards. Out! The old man shouted, giving up all pretense of not being able to speak their language, and he shooed them all towards the door. Aloysia and Hollis helped the young woman up and supported her through the carpet of scattered and broken goods without breaking anything else that was still attached to her. Will you be all right? Aloysia said with concern as the woman brushed herself down on the street outside. She was trying uncomfortably to convey a tone and pointing alone. By tone and pointing alone, that she was referring to the cut above the young woman's eye, which continued to dribble gently. Oh, thank goodness, the young woman cried, clapping her hands together with relief. I'm still working on the local language. This is much easier. Hey, thank you both so much for your help in there. Old man Gimsrud doesn't really like me very much. Not that I blame him. I can get a little clumsy when I'm distracted, and he did get me. He did get in the cutest little baby lindworm. Did you see it? I don't think they could have known what it was, though, or he wouldn't have had it anywhere near him. Doesn't trust anything magical, as I'm sure he found out, she said with a sympathetic nod to Aloysia's hat. It was then that the young woman's eyes fell on Littlewick for the first time, and she dissolved into coos and clicks and baby talk, crouching down so her eyes were level with his and tickling him under his chin with both hands. He purred more loudly than Aloysia had ever heard him. We don't get a lot of cat dragons around here, she said in such a baby voice that Aloysia didn't realize at first that she was being spoken to, and definitely none as small as this one. What is the coloration? Is that chestnut? Would we say, or more red dun? How long is your tongue, sweetheart? She went on before patting him on the stubby horn in a way that made him flop to one side happily and stick it all the way out. Aloysia marveled. Is there a guest house around here? Hollis asked her, apparently as unconvinced by the shopkeeper as Aloysia had been. Nope, said the young woman, taking a tape measure from a pocket and trying to line it up with Littlewick's flicking tongue. Locals don't like to encourage that sort of thing. Sleeping? Said Aloysia. Staying, said the young woman. Well, we do have a perfectly good yurt, but we don't have to stay at all, came Lan's offended voice from behind them. Not if you can tell us where to find river weavers. She addressed this to the young woman in her usual clipped direct tones. Well, the young woman was gaping at the suddenly appearing witch. Well, there's a whole school of river weavers up near my cabin, she said at last. They think they're so well hidden in the reeds, but I know a protoceral caudal fin when I see one. She chuckled, looking at them all expectantly. When they didn't laugh, her beam faltered slightly like an overlooked child. Aloysia felt instantly sorry. Va apka lahaya, ap daskin purf sehain, said Lan, looking at her with interest and slipping into a language that seemed to match the young woman's accent. The woman actually bounced on the balls of her feet when she heard it. Han muropse, she squealed. Vari shakar kya avo yagahi yanti hain. I actually don't know what language this is now. Han, Lan said with a level of enthusiasm so unprecedented that Aloysia thought it would have to be false. Still, whatever the two women were talking about, by the end of their lengthy and unsettlingly giggly conversation, Aloysia had picked up their new friend's name, Shika Yadovara. and profession, a zoologist, Lan translated. But surely the most welcome thing of their short stroll from the general store into a nearby woodland was a place to refresh themselves that had 4 walls, an open fire, and indoor plumbing. Chica's cabin was in the same shape and style as the rest of Stormorton, but it was the only one they'd seen painted green. It sat on the bank of the river, dappled in the sunlight coming through the firs and spruces, and only became more idyllic inside, where it smelled immediately of pastry, butter, and cinnamon. "You fish?" Aloysia asked with pleasant surprise as Chica busied herself in the kitchen. Everything about the cabin's stained wood interior said that it was a fisher's hut. From the net strung across the ceiling and dotted with incongruous plaster seashells to the decorative lures framed over the fireplace. By the door, Hollis was admiring a carved wooden eel that was almost as tall as he was, while on the other side of the room, Lan was inspecting a glass cabinet filled with rods, holding them close to her face and moving her head up and down to take them in. "No!" cried Chica, as if Aloysia had asked if she'd ever been accused of murder. "How awful! Poor little tiddlers! What in the world would you make me think I'm the kind of thoroughly terrible human being who would do a thing like that?" She looked fretful as she set a huge dish of knotted cinnamon pastries down on a driftwood coffee table. The dish was decorated with salmon. Everyone else looked at each other, wordlessly. Chica made herself comfortable on the teal-colored sofa with its shell-patterned throw. "Oh, sit, she said. "Have a Kannelknute." She gestured at the pastries, and for them all they had arranged themselves on the sofa, stool and armchair around the coffee table. Lingri stretched out at Lan's feet, and Aloysia unwrapped her pouch and let Ludwig down to join the other familiar, where he started to play fight with her idly flicking tail. The larger cat dragon twisted round and batted him spiritedly on the head. "About the river weavers," Aloysia said tentatively, grateful for the warmth of the pastry soothing her cold fingers. "We need one, maybe more than one, for a spell I'm working on." Aloysia felt Lan look sidelong at her, as though interested to see whether Aloysia would tell Chica any more about what they were doing than she told her. "A spell? You need them for a spell?" Chica was saying, recoiling slightly. "I won't let you hurt any of them." No, it's nothing like that," said Hollis, putting his half-eaten pastry down on the table and giving her his softest, most patient smile. Once she met his gentle gaze, Aloysia saw her relax. "We just need the reeds they eat, and we can throw them right back." "But if it's the reeds you want, can't you just pick them?" asked Chica. "You can take as many as you want and just leave the river weavers out of it." "I wish it was that easy," said Aloysia. "The reeds have to be chewed by the river weaver for the spell to work." "Weaverase," Chica said with a nod of understanding. "It's an enzyme found only in river weavers' second stomachs. I'd wager it breaks down something in the reeds to release what you need for your magic to work. Of course, it could just be the way their teeth pulverize it," she added, pushing her fist into her palm and twisting it enthusiastically. "But I think it's the Weaverase. They're like coos that way, you know? They chomp on the thing, swallow it, spit it back up into their mouths, and then chomp it all down all over again." Aloysia, Hollis, and Lan all variously chewing, browsing, or holding their pastries en route to their mouths, grounding to a halt. "What? said Chica, looking dismayed again. You don't like the Kanoknuter? A short time later, Aloysia was last to emerge, fresh-faced from his turn in Chica's bathroom. Hollis stood a little way away, leaning on the back of the sofa with his arms folded across his shirt as she caught his eye. He flashed her a look of carefully suppressed, knowing amusement, as if waiting for her to notice something. Give me a hint? She whispered, adjusting the hat he'd bought her on her head and coming to stand beside him. Wait for it, he said under his breath, and struggled to smother a smile as she scanned the open kitchen and living room. The coffee table had been vacated. Lan and Chica were in the kitchen, where Chica, her eyebrow dressed with gauze, her hair now wavy and loose about her shoulders, was stirring something on the hob. Lan was, surprisingly receptively, taking directions on how to grind something green in a heavy gray pestle and mortar. Beside her, Lingui was purring intensely, while Little was hopping up and down on his back legs, trying and failing to flap his little wings before twisting around on himself and going again. I don't, Aloysia started. Wait for it, said Hollis, bringing a fist to his lips in anticipation. Lan sprinkled the something green over whatever was in Chica's frying pan, and Chica made a noise of pleasure at the smell, which was herbal and familiar, now that Aloysia caught a waft of it. Okay, sweethearts, said Chica triumphantly, here comes number 3. And she turned, and with the use of a single fork, tossed the cat dragons the biggest, brightest flatfish Aloysia had ever seen. But the poor little tiddlers, Aloysia exclaimed under her breath, half scandalized, half delighted. Hollis wheezed with suppressed laughter, and Aloysia looked at him and broke into more of the same. They had to lean on each other for support. What? Chica said as they straightened up and saw her looking confused. Nothing, Aloysia said, and felt Hollis's fingers graze her ribs unexpectedly, making her flinch and swallow another laugh. Aloysia was still trying to read his half smile when Chica disappeared from view and then stumbled back into it with 2 fishing rods in each hand. 3 out of the 4 of them were tangled in her hair. Look what I found, she exclaimed delightedly. Now, who wants to unhook this one from my ear? One second. You're sure the River Weavers won't be hurt? Chica pressed Hollis as the 4 people and the cat dragons picked their way through the woodland. Every person was holding a fishing rod except Chica, who was carrying a red tin tackle box and rubbing her bandaged earlobe distractedly. Her rod was in the custody of Lan. I am absolutely certain, said Hollis, who had surprised Aloysia by revealing himself as the only one of their number who'd actually fished before. Evidently, the Tangleroot Guardian's food of choice had fins. He'd therefore been nominated as their resident expert. You promise? No pain? Chica pressed, leaning too close to Hollis's face as they walked and widening her eyes at him as if trying to mesmerize him into telling the truth. You have my word, said Hollis, staring back. Then we'd better hurry. Sheikah led them several minutes upriver, where the border of Skater's snare grew so high that in places they couldn't see over it. Eventually, the willows and the reeds thinned and the river widened into a vast pool at the foot of a roaring waterfall. The water reflected the sunset, turning it violet, and was occupied by hundreds of enormous, startlingly red fish with green tails, yellow faces, and hooked noses. As they watched, many of the river weavers leapt from the pool in pairs, mirroring each other's wriggling movements in the air before splashing back down into the water together. They're dancing, Aloysia thought, scooping up an overly curious Littlewig before he could be knocked out by an errant tail. As she watched the nearest pair, the larger of the two dived and sailed gracefully along the length of a water lily seam. As the fish moved, something like a transparent bunch of grapes appeared beneath her. Her eggs. Wow, we went from Lily of the Valley to Water Lily now, huh? Today is a Lily episode. Isn't it awful? Sheikah squeaked. Like, come all the way here from the foot of the mountain, fighting tooth and nail, or tooth and tail, I guess. And along the way, hundreds of them get killed and eaten by predators. Aloysia wondered what could possibly predate a fish on fish this big. Clearly, they had not been being careful enough sleeping out in the yurt. Hundreds more get suffocated by overcrowding where the river narrows. Heck, plenty just die of sheer exhaustion. Sheikah took a moment to pull herself together. But then, against all odds, a few of them, these guys, she said, spreading her hands, they finally make it to their breeding pool where all these generations of them have been coming forever. They get to make their babies, and then that's it. Destiny fulfilled. They've given all they have to their poor little tiddlers, and then before they can even get their children's face, before they get to see their children's faces, they just fade away. Aloysia hadn't realized quite how literally Sheikah meant this until the young woman gestured to a river weaver floating on its side towards the waterfall. Its vibrant colors had become not just paler but less solid, as if oil paints had dwindled into watercolors. Aloysia could see the bottom of the pool through the fish. Seconds before it reached the froth where the waterfall plunged into the pool, the river weaver became completely transparent, as if turned to blown glass, before dissipating like mist. It was strangely beautiful, but Aloysia had to agree with Sheikah. It didn't seem right. "You're sure that's it?" Lan asked with her typical directness. There was a certain strained quality to her voice. She had folded her arms over her chest defensively. "You're sure the pool isn't poisoned or something? All the other fauna here are healthy?" "I'm sure," Sheikah said, and she looked at Lan sympathetically. "I know, it's terrible, but I tested the water and I wasn't the first to either. Besides, the pool and the river are part of the water supply for every town and village from here right down to the valley. We'd all be getting sick, and it would be no shellycoats, no mudsuckers if it was poisoned." "But what's poisonous to one species isn't necessarily poisonous to another, right?" Aloysia said, thinking of the axolotl guardian wolfing down the solanine grubs with no ill effects. "I mean, if any of us ate yew or hollyberries, we'd know about it. But crow could be fine." Sheikah considered this. "I guess," she said. "But honestly, there's nothing in that pool that I'd be concerned about for any species." Unlike Sheikah, Aloysia was no zoologist, and certainly there was no plant life in the area that looked worrisome. But more than that, she could see there was no time for debate. As quickly as the fish could dance and lay, they were drifting towards the waterfall. Aloysia nodded and attempted to cast her line. It wasn't long before Lan and Sheikah had corked and baited their rods with their barbless hooks that Sheikah had insisted on. They were sitting companionably in the waters at the water's edge as the fish splashed and danced past. Meanwhile, Aloysia had been forced to restring her rod twice and was now having casting demonstrated to her for a fifth time. Hollis had tried to show her directly, holding her elbow to guide her on when she pulled the rod back, or putting his hand over hers on the reel to help her release the line at the right moment. But whenever he did, her skin heated distractingly. Her rod had frequently ended up in the lower branches of a nearby lingonberry bush. By the time Aloysia had cast her line, Sheikah was squeaking insistently and pointing at her own. Aloysia looked at Hollis, who was calmly making a gesture to Sheikah that involved gripping something and flicking her wrist, when her rod made her lurch for the water and dragged her in with it. Before anyone else could react, both Lingui and Lan had trawled in after Sheikah, both women up their middles, the cat dragon doggy paddling unexpectedly and yowling and thrashing with resentment with every stroke. When they stumbled up the bank and took a tumble at the top, Aloysia and Hollis were there to catch them, dragging them awkwardly back up to the rise where Lingui hissed and spat at the water pouring out off her own fur. Here, they sat stunned and damp and dripping until a sudden puff of warmth made the air sparkle with steam, and Aloysia knew that Lan had cast a drying spell on all their clothes. As the hiss of the spell died away, a mew from Littlewick and an odd, wet slapping sound drew Aloysia's attention. Something was wriggling in the grass a little way away. Littlewick had both front paws on its stomach and was looking at it with wide-eyed horror. Sheikah got quickly to her feet, slid forward in the mud, and landed with a slap of her own on her front, eye to eye with the lunker. She cupped the fish under the chin, removed the line, and stuck her hand into its mouth up to the wrist. It emerged slimy, but empty. While everyone else sagged with disappointment, Sheikah wrapped both arms around the fish, lugged it struggling down the bank, and flung it back into the water. It was until Aloysia turned to watch it swim away that she noticed the sudden stillness. "What happened to all the fish?" she said warily. "We scared them off." Sheikah quailed under the shocked looks from the others. "Well, it's one thing sitting quietly on the bank while they do their thing, but you're not really supposed to, join in," she protested. "We'll have to try again tomorrow." "No," said Aloysia. "You saw them. If we wait until tomorrow, they could all have faded away." "She's right," Lan said. "We can't risk it. I have a debt to repay. If fish need quiet, we can be quiet. They need patience. We'll sit here all night. We are making this happen today." Sheikah stared at Lan with a not uncommon look of transfixed shock, and then she softened. "All right," she said uncertainly, "but you all have to turn around and close your eyes and ears." She knelt down among the gazing cat dragons and stroked them both firmly. "That means you too, cutie pies." Feeling foolish, Aloysia closed her eyes and they all turned their backs on Sheikah. There was a sudden metallic pop that made her wince and stiffen. This was followed by several concerning brassy wahs. Then slowly, squeakily, a trumpeting kind of music began to play. Aloysia felt felt it as though it was inside her chest. After she'd heard the same handful of notes 10 or so times, Aloysia became aware of a rippling, swishing noise. and the music came to an abrupt, screeching halt. When they turned back, it was to see a flash of something small and twisted and copper-colored as Sheikah stuffed her instrument back into her pocket and tried to swallow her embarrassment. I'm still working on the River Weaver heart song. She cast her eyes down awkwardly. But they don't seem to mind, she added with a half smile from under her brow. And she flapped an anxious hand in the direction of the river, which was now teeming with the enormous fish. They had somehow lost interest in each other and were crowding around the bank near Sheikah. You did it, Lan cried before covering her mouth, likely at the thought that she might scare the fish away again. She threw her arms around Sheikah and squeezed until the zoologist wilted. Oh, it was nothing, Sheikah said shyly, eyeing Lan as they broke apart. Hollis caught the next river weaver within 2 minutes of the school's arrival. Again, its mouth was empty. After a couple more catches, one by Lan, another by Hollis, the group took to sawing off chunks of reeds with Hollis's whittling knife and using them as bait. The next trio of river weavers, Hollis's, Lan's, and then Sheikah's first, which she brought in with a quickly stifled squeal of excitement, spat the reed painfully in their catchers' faces as soon as they were reeled in. After a particularly sharp edge split open Sheikah's other eyebrow, though, they elected to abandon that particular approach. The more river reavers they brought in, the more squirrely Littlewig became, pacing the water's edge and trying to bat as the fish came out of the water, or else twining between their catcher's legs and trying to steal them by claw as soon as the eyes were averted. Truth be told, Aloysia knew how he felt. I think there's a little spelling error, because I think what it's meant to say is like Aloysia knew how he felt, which how I said it, but it actually says here Aloysia knew how felt, because she felt it too, anxious at being the only one not helping. Aloysia didn't notice at first when her line went taut. The tug was so gentle. But then it became insistent, and she looked and gasped and leaned past Sheikah to widen her eyes at Hollis, who was already looking over. He glanced away, looking oddly repentant, and then his eyes fell on the line. He was getting up, coming towards her, miming and giving instructions when the line came springing out of the water. Aloysia snatched instinctively at it, and it tangled around her hand, dangling the fish from her fingers like a cat's cradle. It was so small that it looked as though it had to stretch its jaw, like a snake, to fit the hook in. But it was a river weaver, and that meant a chance of the reed, so she'd take it. Sheikah stepped around her and tickled the fish under the pectoral fin on one side. When she pulled back with a flourish, Aloysia saw a mulchy string of something dark green dangling between her fingers. Skater's snare. Sheikah plunked the reed into Lan's waiting palm like a discarded tonsil and ran gracelessly down the muddy bank to return the fish to the water. This is it? Lan asked Aloysia, trying not to look too disgusted by the slimy mass in her hands. Will it be enough? Not even close, Aloysia said, shaking her head. But it means it can be done. She didn't say, but it means I can do it. The sun had set by the time they had amassed enough skater's snare for the Guardian. Probably more than enough, if Aloysia was honest, but she'd been so afraid that it might not be, and that all the river reavers would have faded away by dawn, that she'd kept them fishing through the reddening light. Between the 4 people and one well-placed paw, they managed to bring in enough skater's snare to fill 3 well-scrubbed jam jars that they'd brought with them. Hi, Luno. and even a fourth one that had contained several far from fresh worms that Aloysia had decanted, thinking what a waste it was, and what Crow would have had to say about it. She looked reflexively skyward. Lan had to hold Crow where they were going before they'd send him back to Ivy with the stone caps, but they were making much better time than they'd anticipated. She hoped he'd find them before they left Stromoten. They packed up the fishing gear in thoughtful silence, but Hollis's stomach, which rumbled into the increasingly inky darkness, Aloysia caught his eye, and they both looked awkwardly away. "How do we all feel about barbecued flounder?" Sheikah asked, patting her stomach in anticipation, and she led them back through the trees at a jaunty march. "We're trussing her around fire," Hollis asked, widening his eyes at the sight of Sheikah at the barbecue. "You know her house is made of wood." He handed Aloysia a tin mug. "Lan and Lingui have got her," Aloysia said, and pulled the mug, with its painted prawns, close to her face. She breathed in the scent of hot apple juice, cloves, cinnamon, and cardamom. "Glog," Hollis said. "Pardon you," said Aloysia, arching an elbow. "That's what Sheikah says it's called," he went on, knowing she knew that, and with a smile of amusement that glowed in the light of the lantern in the tree above them. "Fun fact, all the villages around here have their own recipe." He took a sip of his, held back the cup as if sizing it up, and then gave a nod of approval. Seeing this, Aloysia sipped hers and felt hot, gently spiced comfort streamed down to her toes. She set the mug on the tree stump beside her. "Tell me that's not the starter," Hollis said, grimacing at the bubbling green mass that Aloysia was using her wand to have a wooden spoon stir over an oddly tall fire pit. A rare bit of magic, since the Guardian's spell demanded it. "It's the reed," she said, and she glanced up through the hole in the canopy that was the reason she'd sat over here, a little way away from the cabin. "It's a preservation spell, the magical equivalent of pickling." She transferred her wand into her other hand and changed direction to counterclockwise as the waxing moon emerged from behind the clouds. "Lucky for us, our Guardian's spell calls for moon-sealed skater snare. Otherwise, by the time it made back down the mountain, the reed would be desiccated." "Lucky indeed," Hollis agreed. "And does the spell also call for a long-handled saucepan, or is that a bit of creative license?" Aloysia mumbled, non-committally. While the choice of vessel didn't strictly make a difference, use of anything other than the traditional cauldron was frowned upon. It was a secondary reason she'd set up a little way away from Lan, although she suspected the coral-dressed witch wouldn't have passed judgment. Aloysia shuffled her feet in embarrassment, disturbing Littlewick, who had curled up in front of her to nap in front of them for a nap that was also a kind of protest. "If you refuse to feed me in a timely fashion, then all I have the energy to do is sleep." As he mewed up at her plaintively, she dropped down the pocket of her dress and elicited an illicit chunk of cheese. "So, where to next?" Hollis asked, nudging her and eyeing her pocket meaningfully. She palmed him some Brunost, a toffee-colored local cheese, in a way that left her hand tingling. "Jordver," she said. "It's a couple of towns upriver. According to the Witch Hiker's Guide, it's the best place on the mountain for pattyberries." "And then home?" he said levelly, and she realized she couldn't tell whether he thought it was a good thing or not. "And then home," she nodded. To fix everything, save the valley. She surprised herself with how much she had to force her own enthusiasm. Part of her, she knew, was afraid of what might happen when they go back to Tangleroot. What if it doesn't work? But there was another, increasingly insistent part that was afraid of something else. Being around Ivy with Hollis and her best friend, noticing something had changed. Something had changed, hadn't it? You don't want to go back? She asked him. He held her eyes, his face smoothed by the same inscrutably as that first night as the corn exchange. Maybe things aren't so different. What makes you say that? He asked, turning his head away to look out at the dark woodland as he sipped his glog. Kitties! Sheikah's voice sounded from over by the cabin. Nearby, Lingui whipped around to look at her. Littlewick's ears pricked up and he licked his lips. I've got a treat! Oh, a treat! That's funny. Aloysia felt the motion as her cat dragon shot off across the garden. You seem... She was saying to Hollis. What? He said wearily. Weird. Back to your old self. I'm usually weird? I don't know, she said quickly, transferring the wand to her other hand and stirring clockwise again as the clouds scudded over the moon. Yes, I suppose it's just when we're in Tangleroot, you're kind of closed off. Coming out here, from day one, it seemed to loosen you up. I didn't realize I was such a curmudgeon most of the time, he said with a smile, but there was a sadness behind it. He held her eyes over the lip of his cup as he took another sip. Aloysia fought for a diplomatic response. I didn't say you were a curmudgeon, she said. I just meant you seemed unhappy. But like you were trying to make the best of it. She realized the truth of this was as the words spilled out. He blinked and dropped his gaze. But correct me if I'm wrong, she added, knowing she wasn't. The silence stretched out between them as his attention was taken by something thoroughly fascinating in the bottom of his cup. Then he said again, and then he said, with a clear of his throat, looking her in the eyes again, "You're not wrong." Sorry, she hastened, as he fixed her with a dark-eyed stare. She felt strangely like she was intruding on a private moment. You don't have to tell me. No, I do, he said, and he cleared his throat again and looked back down into his cup. I want you to understand, he said with a brisk lightness, and he looked up at her and immediately thought better of it. Just maybe understand why you keep on stirring that thing, he said with a downward twirl of a finger and a flash of a weak smile. Got it, she said, and she turned her back to him as she continued to work. I haven't found my thing yet, he said at length with a sigh, not of melancholy, but how feeble he thought they must sound. Maybe it was the pressure of the moment, but Aloysia snorted at his words. She heard a splutter of protest. Oh, right. Shouldn't I have found that when I was about 13, he said, and she was mortified but couldn't help a smile. There was a chuckle in his voice too, which she was glad of. I'm pouring my heart out here. Can I have a little respect, please? Aloysia stopped laughing. No, I mean, he continued, I haven't found the thing I'm good at. Like Ivy. Lan, and Sheikah, and, well, you, obviously, he said. Don't strain yourself, she chuckled. She knew how impressive these other women were, and he didn't even have to throw her in with them out of politeness. Oh my, he blurted with amused frustration, and she looked at him to see he was flexing his fingers. His eyes squeezed shut as if trying to find a way to get his point across that wouldn't involve insulting her again. Will you allow me a crumb of my pride? He added. There was lightness underlying the exasperation as their eyes meet. What do you want me to say? I've noticed how good you are at what you do, how it comes to you so naturally, how happy it seems to make you. And I want some of that too. Startled, Aloysia stared at him, and it was suddenly vital to keep her face impassive. But the thought sneaked through her anyway. Which part do you want exactly? She swallowed and wondered if he was thinking something similar as she realized he'd been looking at her for a long moment. His smile had faded. It was now a lingering, heavy look. This? She said, with a false brightness and a much bigger gesture than was strictly necessary towards the makeshift cauldron to puncture the tension. This is easy. I'm not taming a whole school of fish. I'm not writing my own spells with spell speak. She shook her head in the direction of Lan, feeling afresh the need to be that woman. No prattling pumpkin would speak to Lan the way they did to Aloysia. They wouldn't dare. Oh, come on. Who is these days? Hollis said, stepping forward, all smiles now. The focus was off him. She's some kind of genius. You can't compare yourself to that. But I'm being compared to that, she thought, with a pang she didn't let herself dwell on. First by my parents, now by me. You only think that's easy because it comes easily to you, he added, because you're good at it. You worked hard to be good at it. No one except Ivy had ever spoken to her like that. She looked into his face and hoped he couldn't see how he'd reached inside her chest, how afraid she was that he was going to squeeze. She needed him not to be joking for once. The smile he returned was a small one. Genuine. I'm surprised you know spell speak's fallen out of fashion, she said, teasing him to cover the flutter in her chest. I didn't think you knew how wands worked, she added, tilting her head. Yes, I saw that. Yes, and thank you for all your help with that, he said, with an accusatory widening of his eyes, but his tone was still playful. Aloysia didn't appreciate the joke. You wanted me to help you talk to Lan? She objected. She wished it wasn't so obvious in her voice. I wanted you to talk to me about literally anything, he said, with his charming half smile, and she felt her cheeks flush. As he spoke, she ran his words through an internal proofreading system, checking them for alternative meanings. He couldn't have been saying what she thought he asked. I played dumb. It was dumb. I'm sorry. He clutched his tin mug to his chest. Her eyes followed the way his shirt creased beneath it. As she caught herself and flicked her eyes back to the spell, bubbling nicely, and to his face, she allowed herself to take in his disarmingly disheveled look, as if he'd just opened his eyes. I know you're really into this magic stuff. It's important to you. I try to take an interest. he said. "'Tis magic stuff," she huffed, but a smile tugged at her cheeks. She was having to work hard at being irritated with him. "Do you take anything seriously?" "There aren't many things I'm serious about," he said, unblinking. "Haven't you been listening?" "That's my problem." He looked at her and swallowed and adjusted his stance, putting his weight on the other foot and one hand in his pocket. "I thought I had it," he said, with feeling. "Being the shepherd. Then it was over. Not only over, Sassafras wants to make it disappear, like it never happened. I am the first non-magical person ever to be shepherd, and now, thanks to me, I'll be the last." Aloysia eyed him sympathetically. "We won't let that happen." He nodded with a small smile of appreciation. "I hope you're right. But even if you are, I still don't know what happens next." "What? I'm just supposed to go back to flitting around the town, doing council odd jobs for my sister, and never really feeling like I'm doing anything? When you don't have magic, no one lets you really contribute. You end up feeling like a spare part, you know what I mean?" Aloysia thought of Littlewick. She thought of the mudslide. She thought of never being able to join the rest, to join anyone in really impactful collective magic. "I do," she said, meaningfully. She held his gaze. "You're doing things. You do plenty of things," she gabbled, suddenly keen to take his pain away, to see that smile of his again. "You helped me with Littlewick. You got me this dress. You're good with a sword when it comes down to it." "So, nanny / bounty hunter," he said sardonically, but the smile had returned. "No, I mean you're more than your job," she went on. "You're not like me. It's not what defines you. You're smart, charming, thoughtful, and kind, and confident, and oh, you can fish." She cried as if the thought was a revelation. "Have you thought about..." "No?" He was already shaking his head about giving her a grateful smile as he did. "Tried it?" He nodded. "What? Then go with the other stuff I say. Be those things. They're what's really you, not how you make your living." The spell fizzed and gave off a swirl of crimson smoke, and she was glad to have to look away and concentrate on her wand work for a moment. "See that? That right there. That little twiddly, flourishy thing?" said Hollis urgently. "You're not telling me that was easy? It looks like it would take me about 6 months to master." 3 weeks, she said, humbly, as if she remembered how much trouble it had given her. She pocketed her wand and brushed her hands off on her dress, the dress he had given her. "I was far from the first." The spell just needed to set now. She turned away from the saucepan, folding her bare arms across her chest and rubbing one with the other. "But you kept at it," he said insistently. "Like with the fish today. You didn't give up. That's what I admire about you." "You admire me?" It's what she thinks. She didn't say that. "You keep going," he was saying now. "Keep finding a way. Being a witch means so much to you. You won't let anything stop you from doing it. Even when it all blows up in your face." She made a throat in her noise. She made a noise in her throat. "Thanks a lot," and said dryly, It was all going so well there for a moment." No, I mean it, Wick, he said, and he put a hand on top of her arms. His eyes flicked uncertainly from hers to her mouth. His use of Ivy's nickname for her had brought her crashing into Elusia's mind. This man's sister was her best, and if she was honest, only friend. How could she think what she was thinking about him right now? What would it do to their friendship if she let herself be kissed by Ivy's big brother? Elusia, he was saying contrively, you know what's important to you, and you protect it. And I just really like that about you. He dipped his head slightly so that he was looking at her through a frond of fringe, the same frond of fringe that had brushed her forehead as he left their room in the bathhouse. Her skin remembered how bad it felt. That, and you know, how you're looking at that, and you know, how you're looking at dress. Trying to think of a fun throat thing to say, but brain empty. You're fine. He risked a slow glance from her knees up to her face, and she had the unsteadying feeling that she wasn't wearing it anymore. She realized with a jolt that it didn't object to the idea. And that's the end of chapter 17. I think though this might be a decent way to end the book for today. That was two pretty long chapters compared to some of the other ones, I would say. I did just realize as well though, guys, I totally still forgot to upload last Sunday's VOD. I need to upload last Sunday's VOD and now this one as well. I totally forgot about it. Ah! Help! I am a bad content creator. It's all good. It's all good. I will upload it later tonight. Also, uploading is hard. Time is stuff. Yeah. Also, Lily, that Monster Hunter TikTok is still gaining views. It crossed the 2,000 mark now. What? I don't understand. I do not understand how that one is the only one that's been blowing up right now. keeps going. It seems like it's not stopping anytime soon, huh? Okay, how to tell until it happens? I don't know. When did I upload it? Actually, can I see that somewhere? Oh yeah, I can see it in my on the TikTok Studio thing, right? Because I've uploaded it that like more than a week ago now at this point or something, and it's like still gaining. Post there. The whims of fate whisk with the fortune at times. Yeah, it's so weird. The crazy thing is though, like, if I'm looking at the analytics right now, only 9.4% watched the full video. But hey, that's like 2K views and like 140 likes. I have no fucking idea. People have found it by searching for my name? What? Not like Nerdy LP, like the full thing, not just Nerdy. Apparently search queries, Nerdy LP 66%. What? What? But most of the traffic comes from the For You page, obviously. Global naming coming, I guess. Yeah, I uploaded that on April 24th. We are now at May 4th. Oh, May the 4th, guys. Star Wars Day. Let's go. Damn. I don't understand. I do not understand. This platform confuses me. I can't spell. Genshin Impact. All right, we're just gonna quickly do a little bit of Genshin. A little bit of Genshin. Genshin Impact. Because I gotta do the new Imaginarium Theater. I forgot what elements it was. Wasn't it like Pyrocryodendro or something? Wasn't it Pyrocryodendro? Something like that. I do not remember. Pyrodendron and Hydro. Okay, it was Hydro, not Cryo. All right. I should be fine. I have a bunch of Pyro and Hydro characters at least. Dendro, I'm okay at, I guess. I have like, who do I actually have? Yao Yao, Nahida, Neferlama. Dendro Traveler, I guess, if I would switch to them. But also I have Pyro Traveler, so that could also help.